Welcome back. So this video will be how to turn a ball, and this will be step-by-step process, so you can choose the chapter which you are interested in, and I'll try to do that feature on the video, so it will be much easier for you to either follow or skip to the part that you are interested in. This will be two-part series. So in the part one, we're going to rough out this piece of ash, rippled ash, and how to set it aside for drying as well, and all that. And in the second part, we're going to finish the rough out ball. So first, I'm going to show you two tools that I'm going to be using. The first is, this is a 1/2-inch ball gouge, so 12 or 13 mil diameter tool. And this has asymmetric grind from Richard Raffan. And the other tool we're going to be using is spindle gouge. This is a Henry Taylor spindle gouge, and here is the more conventional one. This is the KS SCHULTE spindle gouge, which has more of a standard symmetric grind. Sort of inspiration for this video came from a video the other day, which I saw a turner, or so-called turner, do his work on the ball with this. So this is the spindle roughing gouge. So this has no business doing on the cross grain work, where the grain is running this way, the ripples on this ash are going the other way. So the grain is running like so, and this is only to be used on spindle work, so nowhere near the cross grain work, such as balls or cross grain boxes and stuff like that. So I'll show you how I mount this on the lathe, and we'll start. Okay, so here I have this is a homemade screw chuck. There is a video how I did this, so it's really simple. This is the faceplate that came with this lathe. So how I like to mount the piece of wood on the lathe is by, so the screw chuck, this is the homemade one. You can use a screw chuck that came with your chuck. Now you can use this kind of a homemade version or a bought version, or you can use a screw that came with your chuck. Now I do highly recommend, because usually you have standard jaws which are 50 mil or 2 inches, I believe. I highly recommend, so you make a backer board. So this threads through here. That goes into chuck, and then you tighten this all the way to the jaws, and now you have sort of this scenario but with a bigger screw. And sometimes this screw does, depends on if it's a softer wood, it likes to spin. Then I use this one because it has much more coarser thread. So to mount this, usually I turn the lathe on slowly, and just slowly wind this on. Use the power of the lathe, and this is now quite solid, but you can lock the spindle and tighten it a bit more, and that's it. So you can bring the tailstock. I'll turn it on, and I'll see how it behaves. Will it rattle a bit too much? It is slightly out of balance, so I might bring the tailstock. So I'll just reposition the camera. Okay, so I did bring the tailstock, and we'll slowly wind the speed on. Now, just before I continue on, let me know in the comments below. I'm using a new sound rig, and should be quite an improvement of sound, but let me know. Start the lathe on slowly and wind the speed up slowly again, and until everything starts to shake, and then you go back a little bit, and that's running now at 700 RPM, which will be okay just for start. Ideally I want a little bit more speed, so we just true everything up. Okay, so the first step is to true everything up. So you have to true up your blank in order first of all to run it through. You can see how it wobbles in the shadow. So I want to flatten this face, the top face here, and this side here. But first I like to remove some of the weight here where the bark is. Let me just show you. Here is the bark section, and there is no bark on the other side. So just like to remove this corner a bit, and that will give me clearance here at the bottom to bring the tailstock, to bring the banjo more in. So first tool I'm going to be using is a spindle gouge, just to show you that it can be done. Now the spindle gouge that I'm using is on the rod. You can use the one on the tank, but on the rod is much more stable tool, much more stronger tool. So I highly recommend only using on the rod. So start your cut on the side. You approach the wood, open it slightly where the flute is pointing, let's say 10:30 o'clock, and you go in arcs, so you move like so. I'll do that again. So although I'm not using big speed, the tool, as you see in many videos on YouTube, this is happening to turner who is truing up the bowl. You cannot true anything up if your tool is doing this, so you have to be neutral with the tool. The tool is in universe of itself, let's say, and you just go through negative space of the bowl. Like so. Just bring you in a little closer again. Like so. Same stuff with bowl gouge. Bowl gouge, I like to point the flute around 10 o'clock, let's say. So again, so like I said, this is asymmetric grind from Richard Raffen. So you can see a full curve on the left and longer left wing and short right wing. The angle here is around 45 degrees. Same on the spindle gouge. Maybe on the spindle gouge it's 40 degrees. So again, one more pass and then we'll true all the sides. So again, you start with the flute fairly closed. Open up a little bit to 10 o'clock. Just remove my hand so you can see actually. So you can see I'm not fighting the tool, I'm not fighting the wood. Everything is quite still. There's no bouncing with the tool, so that's coming along quite nicely. So now I'm going to true up this face here. You can see how it's wobbling with my finger. Same you can hear, and the flute is around 9:30, and you just lightly push it in. I see a lot of turners struggle with this, and it really isn't an issue, because slightly out of balance. So again, I'm using left wing. So you're not pushing hard into the wood, you're letting the wood come to the tool, like so, and draw it back. Okay, so that's now the face here, the bottom is trued up, and now I'm going to focus on the top face. I'm going to true up the diameter, so this part is pretty well trued up. Just going to continue on. So this will be sort of a push cut. So again, you're not fighting the tool. And that's now trued up diameter, so that's all looking quite nice. And here for the top, I'm going to be using right wing, finger underneath the rest, and you just lightly push it in with your thumb. Flute is again 930. You don't want to open it to 10 because it could catch you over, because this kind of angle and you're going quite in. It's better or safe position to go towards the 9 o'clock rather than towards 11 o'clock or 10. You can hear this is not true here. And now it is. And so that's partially most of the top face trued up, and I'm just going to nick this corner so it's not sharp. So that's our blank. This is the pretty much every step that I do for rough turning bowls. Apart, I might take this bevel here even more, or the shape. So, but this is basically what you want to do. So you true up your bottom, you true up your top, your sides, and now you see what you have available in terms of if there is any split or anything. So here I still have a bark, so I want to remove that. And since this is now trued up, I will be able to bring the speed up more to desired speed, which I'm after. Step 2. Now I bring the speed up to 1000 RPM roughly. You can still hear the wobble, and it's mostly if I put my hand here on the dust hood, I can sort of reduce it. So the shelf is vibrating a bit and everything, so that doesn't concern me. So we just start to creating a rough shape. So again, I'm like to peeling the side grain. So I'm not using push cut like this. To take away the wood, I like to use the wing of the tool and peeling the side grain, which gives me better, quicker results, and especially if I'm doing 20, 30, 50 of these in one day, so I want to get the job done quite quickly. So this is the wing of the tool, you're peeling the side grain. same can be done with the spindle gouge. Like so. So as you can see, pretty much in one cut, maybe two cuts, you can take a hell of a lot of wood and get the rough shape in. So that's rough bowl shape. The bark is gone, which is good. You can see lovely, this is a rippled ash, and here is the olive part in it. And this is something that mold has created in it, so this kind of green streaks in, so quite nice stuff. So this is the rough shape of the bowl. Now I want to focus, before I continue on with the rest of the shape, I want to focus on cutting the tenon. I always prefer the tenon. Now with the tenon, there is always an option. You can shape it to a foot, you can shape it, use it as a tall foot. There is a tremendous amount of stuff you can do with the wood you have for the tenon, where when you put a recess in the bottom of like this rough out bowl, you limit yourself with what you can do. At least that's in my opinion. And I'll show you two types of tenons that I like to do. So first, I like to use a spindle gouge for cutting the tenon. Here calipers, these are for my bigger chuck when it's in fully closed position. So I know on this size of bowl I don't want to go any less than that. So I like to use spindle gouge to cut my tenons, and again, peeling cuts. Now I use spindle gouge to cut the tenon, and I don't worry too much about the angle, the exact angle here, that it has to be a negative from your chuck. In my opinion, it doesn't have to be. On a rough out bowl like this, it can be even straight for a dovetail chuck. The teeth or the shape of the dovetail will dig in slightly here, and you don't have to have a perfect negative from your angles of your chuck. This part inner here, so that's always at some angle. Not sure even what angle here on the wick mark is. Here is the more symmetrical grind. So I close the flute, you enter your foot, you can open it slightly, but when you get to the bottom you want to close the flute again. So that's straight foot. If I want a little bit of an angle, I just take the handle towards me more. Now that's 2 degrees maybe, and that's doesn't have to be exact. Now that's my opinion on the tenon, and this is the way I cut it, and I never had any tenon failure. So now the other method is using a skew or a sort of a diamond shape scraper, which then you would grind it to your specific angle that you want. But like I said, you don't have to be really specific about it. It's not rocket science, and I'll just show you with the skew. So you don't go from this side, because here you have a lot of end grain, which is hard on your tools no matter what. So you go from this side, and this is, as you can see, slightly maybe 2-3 degrees to the left, and you just line your angle here to be parallel, across the lathe axis. So this inevitably will be at an angle, and you just slightly go from this side to a side grain, like so. Now here You can see I'm not into corner yet, so I'll have to remove this part. Now I'm using this as a negative rake scraper. And now I can get here into corner. So this is the other way you can cut your tenon if you really want to be like this pristine. So you can see that's angled, it's nice and clean and everything. So that's one way to cut a tenon and just have a single foot like this on your bowl. The other way, which I do it quite a lot, just bring the speed up a bit. I put a secondary step. I just remove this part of the wood. Secondary step. Now this does sort of reduce the kind of shape that I want here, but if I remove this, now I have, just bringing a little bit closer, now I have two shoulders. So this is where the chuck will grab, and this is the other one. So I can down the road, when this is dry, I can use this part as a foot, or and finish it, and then later just remove by reversing the bowl, or just remove the tenon here. Or I can use all of this and make a reverse curve here. There's a lot of options when you make a cleft surface like this, and like I said, it gives me more options down the road if I want to use this foot, or if this is too small for any reason, maybe there was a knot here or whatever, I have to reduce this. I always have this part here still intact, and I can use it for a foot or any detail or something like that. So you can take the wood off, but you can't take it back, and so that's my mind behind it. And this is not something that I've come up with. This is something I've seen from Mike Mahoney, and it really does make sense to me, at least, to have this second step, which then you can use either there is another reason that you would like this kind of step, and that is if you like your chuck to butt against here, the flat here on the chuck, to butt here, then you could leave this portion and then have this removed like this, and now you have your chuck resting up against the flat surface. Now I don't do it because of that reason. As you'll see, I will remove this portion here now, and all my jaws will just go into the corner, and you don't have to have this kind of flat spot. Now you might want to have this flat spot if you're turning really big bowls, then you have more of a resting place for your chuck, and you reduce the amount. You could put force more here, and it doesn't deflect the bowl, let's say. But on the smaller bowls, up to maybe, let's say, 12 inches or so, maybe a bit bigger, you don't really have to have a flat spot for your chuck. That's at least my opinion on this, and it works for me. I'll just remove it. Cut my tenon and drag it back with the spindle gouge. You can finish the shape if you would like. But for the rough out bowl, this is more than enough. There is a slight hump here, so I can remove that. but it doesn't have to be anything more than it's now. So you'll see when we take it off the chuck. Now I would like to remove this knob, so you take off the tailstock. Just grab the ball gouge. And you can bring your tailstock back here, just to mark yourself a center for later, let's say, if you want. So that's the outside done. So we'll take that out the chuck, screw chuck. So you can see it's not the perfect shape. It doesn't have to be for a rough out all that smooth or anything like that. You just want a sort of a curve which then you can follow from the inside to have a even thickness. That's more important. This is standard dovetail jaws. These are I believe 100 mil jaws. So I like to point the grain, so it's, as you can see here, the grain is running like so, and you place it like that on the chuck, and that way when the jaws squeeze, they will squeeze on a same piece of orientation of the wood, and it won't compress all that much, or it will compress evenly. So that's running nice. Now to chew everything up now, the rest of the blank here at least. So you can see this is where I was able to get from the other side when it was mounted. So all I want to do now is continue down to the center. And the way I like to do it is with the left wing of the tool. You just lightly push it in. Now you can place your tool rest like so, so you have somewhere to rest your hand. And you can push in by squeezing your hand like so. So like this, or you can drop a rest a bit and then use wing of the tool to peel like this. But like I said, I like to go straight in to the spindle direction, so I just squeeze my hand. And you draw it back towards yourself. Like that. And now this is again a corner. It's not that sharp, but it's always a good idea to take it off. Or because on the rough out I always round this over, so we can round it a bit more. Now we're going to drill a depth hole. Now you don't have to drill a depth hole if you don't want to. The thing is, the reason I like to do it because it prevents me to enter the funnel club. So just check which depth I can go. I can go to this mark. You can mark your drill bit like this, or you can put your finger like this and then gauge it like that, or you can put a tape, whatever works for you. Okay, so after drilling our depth hole, now it's time to hollow it out. Now I don't stress too much about the position of the tool rest. Is it either two way up or two way down. You want to cut it somewhere around the center line, but sometimes if I have a tool like this is a brand new crown ball gouge, and it's quite a long tool here, and the handle is quite long, so I might even bump on the bad ways, so I need to raise tool rest a bit higher. So now first thing is always when you start your entry cut is to close the flute, bring the handle up level, and that way you make a little V shape, and then once you're in the wood you open it up and you proceed forward. If you open it up and enter the wood like this, you'll get a nice little skate, and it's a nice little spiral, as you can see. So a lot of turners struggle on YouTube when you watch videos and they go little nibs, and then they fuff around too much, and then they go into this direction like this, like that. And first of all, that's against the grain. Now you can get away with it when you have a lot of wood like this, but when you have a thin wall, then that's a recipe for a disaster, because this live tooling will act as a scraper and you will blow up your bowl. So again, start. I might just clean this up a bit like that. So you start with the tool closed, flute is 3 o'clock, you make yourself V shape, and you always have a little stop like this finger on a tool race, so it doesn't skate back as well. And then once you're in the wood, open your gouge and then proceed forward. So you can see I'm using pretty much all of my right wing, which is almost half an inch, something like that. And I'm trying to go as much straight in as I can as I'm peeling the side grain, and you get this, oops, bumped the camera again, lovely shavings. Now with the ash it's slightly different shavings, because it's open wood, open pore wood. And you can always leave your steps like this, so you can easily start your next level down. So that's pretty close to the desired thickness. Now, some rule of thumb is around 10% of your total diameter should be wall thickness. Now, I don't measure it. I do it by eye, and I do it by species. Now, what I mean by that is, let's say plum likes to warp quite a bit. Some other timbers, let's say pear as well, likes to warp extremely a lot. So if you leave your enough thickness, then you can cope with that warpness and whatever it's going to do. So just keep that in mind. Now ash, in my experience, doesn't warp all that much. At least the stuff now, this log that I have, doesn't warp all that much. So drop the ruler. So this bowl is almost 9 inches, so 220 mil. So roughly 22 mil will be 10%, and I'm almost there. This is 1 inch thickness. So the other factor which I forgot to mention is when you cut down the tree, if it is full of water or if it's slightly drier log. So for instance, all the cherry that I have is from the same log, and it's sort of a dry state. It was already when it came down, and I know I could go a little bit thinner, and that way it will dry out even faster, and it doesn't change the shape all that much. So I'm just going to take this a little bit further down, open up the gouge a bit, and now what I'm watching, I'm sightseeing from this side, and you sort of have a let's say eye on one side, on the outside of the ball, and the right eye on the inside, and you sort of can gauge. It's hard to describe it. You can sort of gauge the thickness as you go along. That is the same principle I use for thin balls. So now here I'm taking a bit too much, and again I bumped the camera, so that's pretty even thickness, and I want to soften this edge as well. That helps ball to not crack, so I can go further down. So so that's the bottom of the hole. Now here, since this is a brand new gouge and it's quite a long flute from the handle, it will vibrate a little bit more until I get it maybe 2 inches down, then it will be perfect. That's why I would like to get some sort of a system for this kind of half-inch gouges, which I can then insert into the handle and reduce that vibration a bit. Now I can take this apart and obviously pound it more in the handle, but for now I'm going to leave it as it is. Now as I'm coming here, this is all pretty much end grain, a little bit of side grain exposure, so you don't want to take this kind of heavy cut. Now as you can see here, when I'm riding the bevel, I'm almost hitting here the rim, and actually I do. So this is where I would transfer to scrapers. So for instance, this is 1 inch by 6 mil. And that's it. If you have like 50-degree nose angle on your gouges, then you would know, wouldn't have any problems getting around this corner. So that's hollowing done, and now I'm going to talk about a little bit on how I go about drying this. So drying process, first of all I put on the date and the year, the month and the year, so 9/23, and so currently for this ball, since I don't have room on the rack, this will go on the floor, on the pile, big pile. There is around 80-ish balls on the ground, this kind of ash, and mostly ash, those platters that I did a few weeks ago, a few other balls and other pieces. And on the shelf I have currently 450, so The total number of rough out balls currently is 537. This will be 38. But we will finish this one, so it won't take that. Won't go into that number. The reason I'm putting this on the ground, first of all, ash doesn't want to split all that easily. At least this one I've tested, this log. This doesn't have all that much moisture in it, so it didn't spray all the way water or anything like that. So all of the free water, the initial one, the biggest one that makes you trouble with the cracks, already escaped. I'm quite confident that this will just go on the ground near to concrete floor. And the other thing, in my shop, it's quite ideal, I guess, for drying, because it's 22 degrees Celsius currently and 72% moisture, humidity. So pretty much all of the ash I've turned into this bowls, platters, plates, and everything in the last few weeks. None of it cracked. So, but like I said, if this was full of moisture, like just freshly felled tree, and when you turn it, the water is just seeping through, I would coat this with 10% diluted wood glue. Just a regular white wood glue is all I use, and I will coat the entire thing and put it just on the ground to dry it, and next day or a few days after, once it's fully dried, I would put it on the shelf and leave it, and check it periodically in a few weeks how it behaves. But like I said, this is quite stable, so this wouldn't, I would not coat this, and this will just go on the ground. Now, when I decide not to coat the bowls is, for instance, a lot of the cherries I have on the shelf, there are around 250 bowls of cherry. Most of them I did not coat at all, because the tree was already dead when it was standing, and once it was fell down, it was standing like that for too long of a time, and it already on the one part started to decay, but I managed to get it before it was too late. But the thing was with that cherry, that is, it wasn't completely dry, obviously, but it was around 30% moisture, 25, which then I could just rough turn it, put it on the shelf, and it wouldn't warp or anything like that. So I didn't coat it. If I felt the wood was a bit too more moisture in it or anything like that, then I would coat it. But for most part, I did not coat the cherry balls. The pear ones, they're around 100 balls of pear. Most of them are coated because it was freshly cut down tree and it was full of water in it, and just want to prevent too fast of escaping water out of the bowl, so that was causing you trouble with splits. The other thing that you can help out with splits on the rim here, at least, is you soften the edge here, so I round it over a bit, and that is better than having nice, how should I say, the crisp corner, let's say, sharp corner. So it's always a good idea to soften it, and it does help out with cracks. So this will go usually on the pile and let it dry for 6 to 8, 9 months. It depends on where it is in the different stages. But I'm going to speed this one up. I will put it through microwave a few sessions. Now, since this is a thicker bowl, I want to take it a little bit easier, so not too high heat or too much of a time in, because you can develop micro splits. So just take your time. So we'll see in the next part. We're going to finish this bowl.